Hey, what up? It's Quinn, and today we're going to be reviewing a game that I played last weekend at the TCC Saturday Swiss. It's a local small tournament with about 55 people showed up across three sections. I was playing in the under 1600 section as one of the higher rated players there, and I'm going to show you a game that I played against a player who was lower rated, but who had 2 out of 3 heading into the last round. So there's 4 rounds total. He had won 2 of 3 games. And I had overheard this player because he was playing on the board next to me in the previous round. He had ended his game with his opponent very quickly. And as he was packing up to leave the table, he said, I wasn't expecting you to attack so quickly. And he made it clear that he had resigned the position because he was under a lot of pressure. So I gained some intel. You're not really supposed to be talking that much in the tournament room, right? So I overheard him. I got some intel that maybe he doesn't do so well when he's being attacked, when he's under pressure. So during this game, I tried to intentionally play into that dynamic, and we'll see if I was successful in doing that. So let's start by going through the game. First, I'm playing as the player with the black pieces. He plays e4 and c5 is my response, and we're heading into the Sicilian defense. Knight f3, d6, and here he throws in bishop b5 check. Usually d4 is what's played here, but bishop b5 check also a playable move for sure. And I decide to respond with bishop to d7, which is the most common move. I was thinking about going knight c6, but I didn't like having the pin, and it's not very commonly played. It's played 12% of the time, and black scores pretty well from that position as well. So knight c6 also a decent move to contend the d4 square and develop the knight to a pretty active square on c6 is also an idea. But I just wanted to not have a pin and kind of dissolve this situation quickly. And after he took on d7, in congruence with the fact that I still wanted to play knight c6, I took with the queen so that I don't move the knight yet. I can play the knight to c6. So I developed my queen as my first developed piece. He plays d3, which is going into the closed Sicilian, and now we're like heading into completely out of book. This is not the most common move. I go knight f6 and try to go into my Sicilian dragon setup anyways. And he makes motions to look like he's probably going to castle towards the king side or something. So after g6, he plays knight bd2, continuing to develop, albeit a bit passively. And according to the engine, this position is already roughly even between white and black. So I play bishop g7 here, and there's ideas of potentially lining up a attack down this diagonal. So he plays c3 to hedge against that move. It's one of the top engine moves, but again, just not the most active move. And his pieces are, not in the most active positions either. On d2 with his knight, for example. And he's going to develop his queen to c2 as well in the very next move. So here I castle, he plays queen c2. And I play knight c6, as was my plan. And he decides to castle longside. And immediately the evaluation plunges and heads into a favorable direction for black. And there's a couple reasons for that, I think. One is because his queen and his king are lined up along this c-file. And in Sicilian dragon opposite side castling situations, you can't afford even a tempo that's gifted to your opponent. And because of this alignment, he has to spend a move at some point to play his king out of the c-file to b1. So this is already costing him a tempo. And in addition to this, I might rip open the c-file at some point by playing b5, b4, and then his queen is still stuck there. I might get a tempo by playing rook to c8, which is a move that I definitely want to play, and then hit his queen. So there's a couple downsides to this move. Plus, he's already created this pain point on c3 here that I can launch my pawn into and try to destabilize his defenses. And c3 is also in the line of sight of my bishop. So there's a lot of reasons, a lot of ways that I can open up the position as a result of him having played this weakening move. So after long castles, I immediately go into attack with b5. This is the engine top move. And you're going to see me play a lot of engine top moves or top 2, top 3 moves in this position. I'm sorry that my video is a bit laggy because I have the analysis window running. And here my opponent plays h3. So because I have the knight contending g4, he can't immediately play g2, g4. Sometimes in the Sicilian defense, in the playing as white against the Sicilian, you have played f2 to f3 already, and you can play g4 with the f pawn supporting that, but he put his knight on f3, so he doesn't have that going for him. I play b4 here, engine top move, and immediately I'm threatening to potentially take. I was looking at a possibility of him pushing past with c3, c4, just as a variation. And in this line, I was thinking about potentially playing e7 to e5 and grabbing this d4 square. But the computer also just likes rook after b8 or queen c7, developing the heavy pieces towards the king side, and then continuing with the attack by playing a5 and then a4 at some point. And then a3 finally lands, and this is so bad for white that he has to run his king to the king side to try to escape this attack. And finally, he might be able to lock up the position by playing b2 to b3, but the space advantage that I have on the queen side is crushing, and he doesn't really even have any tempi to try to launch a kingside attack because this is arriving so quickly in this variation. So that's kind of the solution if he plays c3 to c4, but my opponent never did that in this game. Instead, he plays g2 to g4, trying to get his attack going on the king side, and let's see how that goes for him. So here I play a7, a5. Again, a top move according to the engine. I just wanted to ramp up the pressure before I decide to take on c3. And then he plays g5, driving away my knight. But I have a pretty good square for my knight, and that's to h5. And this basically shuts down his attack entirely because this pawn on h3 is now blockaded by the knight, and my lone knight here is shutting down his rook. It's shutting down the potential of anything going on the g files or h files. So even though the knight is kind of out of play, and we'll see that as a theme later on, how this knight eventually gets back into the game. Even though this knight is out of play on h5, it's kind of worth it because it's stopping so many possible threats by the opponent. And with nothing going on the king side, all of the attention is drawn to what's happening on the queen side, where I have a massive space advantage. So after knight h5, he plays d4, which I think is not so good of a move. Now, when your opponent is attacking on the queen side, of course, you want to try to counterattack in the center, but this just hits a little bit too close to home. It allows me to play c takes d4 and open up the c file, and that's exactly what I decided to do. First, I decide to take on c3 so that I can take away his contention on the c file before I decide to take on d4 and open up my part of the c file. So here he plays queen takes c3. Now, we can also look at b takes c3 as an alternative, but in this variation after c takes d4, playing c takes d4 is a little bit rough because you have your queen and your king lined up. Although in the queen takes c3 variation, you also have that. But that is the top move. You could also play knight takes d4, which leads to some exchanges. And in fact, after knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, you're actually afraid to capture back because you're just exposing your queen to the attack. So let's say he takes with a knight. I just take, and take. And if he takes back with the pawn, rook after c8 is immediately winning material. Let's say he tries to stop that with knight to c4. I just play queen to b5, and I'm going to be picking up material on c4 very, very quickly and still having the pin to work with, potentially. So he has to run away from that by playing king to d2. So this is going to be winning a piece on c4. Let's go back to the game continuation. So after b takes c3, he takes with the queen. And he is able to hold on to his material for a moment here. So I played knight takes, c takes. He plays knight takes. And after rook after c8 here, he plays knight to c4, which is the top move defensively. And this is already -5 for black here. And this temporarily saves him. He can play b2 to b3 to support this knight, and it's solid for a moment. But I play, again, the top move, knight to e5. And the downside of me playing all these good moves right now is that I'm getting drained on the clock. It's game 30, so each player has 30 minutes to make all of their moves with a 5-second delay. And at this point in the game, I'm probably through like 15 to 18 minutes of it. So I'm through over half of my clock, thinking that I'm going to be able to end the game very quickly or place my opponent under a lot of pressure because, like I said, he admitted that he resigned a position because he was getting attacked, right? So I was trying to end the game quickly, potentially by him resigning. But maybe the fact that he was up on the clock gave him hope and he didn't give up so easily in this game. So knight e5, and he plays b3. So he's finding defensive moves here and there to just keep himself afloat. And I decided to take here, and this the position is completely wide open. He has the c-file is an absolute nightmare for my opponent, and I again find a really nice move here: queen to a4, double attacking the a2 pawn and the c4 pawn. I was looking for ways to keep the pressure up and not let my foot off the gas, and I was continuously investing time into finding these. I've been watching Sadistic Tushar recently, really inspired by the way that he's so resourceful when he's attacking. So I wanted to play a game that was reminiscent of how he plays rapid. Queen a4, and then he plays queen b3, attempting to defend this a2 pawn because it would be really bad to drop this pawn and this pawn. But nevertheless, I'm going to be able to take here, and I took correctly here by capturing with the rook with a check. Taking with the queen's not as good because getting the queens traded off is going to be a relief for my opponent. And up to this point, I haven't even won any material yet. This is my first point of material that I've won out of the attack that I've gained so far. So after this, he plays his knight back to c2. And again, I was thinking about, should I just trade queens here, simplify to an endgame? But then I decided, no, I play again the top move, queen to c6, keeping the pressure up and preventing the queen trade to try to convert and try to pick up more material or deliver a checkmate at some point. So I play queen to c6, and he plays rook to d2, defending the knight on c2, and he was finding these moves pretty quickly. He's a good player, a young player as well. A rook to c8 here, just a very easy move to play, racking up the pressure and building upon this pin along the c-file. And he breaks that pin with king to d1, but he's got to be careful. He can't go too far with the king because he's going to drop this knight. He has two defenders, and I have three attackers. He has three defenders. I have three attackers right now, so he can't afford to take away one more attacker. And this is where I started to no longer play the absolute best moves in the position. So the best move here is to play queen takes e4. I was really down on the clock. I probably had like 5 to 8 minutes left. And it was starting to look like he could get away to the king side with his king. And that the game wasn't going to end like within the next 5 moves. So I started to try to budget my time better and plan for potentially going into an endgame at some point. And that caused me to play faster, so I was no longer seeing the board as clearly as I was seeing it before when I had more time to think. So queen takes e4 is the best move here. Instead, I played rook to c3, still holding on to a -5 and greater advantage, just trying to drive his queen away from the position. And he plays queen to b1. And this move is nice because it prevents his knight from, is nice for me, because it prevents his knight from moving away. If his knight moves away, I have rook to c1 check, forking the king and the queen. So I played here. I played f5. So I was trying to keep the game complicated and trying to get him to think and just trying to stir up the position more if possible. And I was also thinking about potentially getting my knight into the game if he decides to take on f6. He doesn't decide to do that. He plays g takes up. He plays e takes f5, and he blunders the rook on h1 with a check. I just did not see this at all. I was playing moves, trying to play moves very quickly, so I just took on f5 thinking that it was like an automatic recapture. And then he plays rook to e1, running away from that attack, so he probably did see that. And then I play e5, trying to get like a pawn storm rolling. Still big advantage to me in the position. And he plays f2 to f4, which is I think kind of a dubious move. Probably shouldn't be trying to create more weaknesses in the position than you already have. And here the computer likes e takes f4, driving away this bishop. But I played e4 because I wanted to have a nice protected pass pawn. But perhaps something more dynamic would be better. Let's take a look at e takes f4 here. So here he's got to run away with the bishop. He doesn't have too many squares to go to. He can retreat it to f2. He can play his bishop more actively. Let's say he goes to f2. Now I have knight to g3. So the knight is coming into the game, and it's not retreating somewhere to f6. It's going into a very active square that's supported by the pawn. And here I'm threatening to play queen to f3 check, or to bring my knight into the center with knight to e4. So lots of good positional moves that I can play. And you can just see all of his pieces are kind of stuck defending. So if I can just bring one more piece into the attack from my side, I'm just going to tip the scale in my favor. So that didn't happen. I played e4 instead, slowing down the game a little bit and perhaps giving my opponent a chance to breathe. He plays a2 to a3 with the idea of getting his queen away from this back rank fork that I have going on in the realm of possibility. And I played d5, just trying to again get something going with the pawns. He plays queen to a2, and I played rook to d8 because I didn't want something to happen here on d5. The threat in the position was, in fact, rook takes d5. Stockfish likes rook to d3. This is an even more active way to defend, pins the rook. And if trade, then I get a pass pawn on d3. That's really deadly. Sorry, my computer is slowing down a little bit here. So yeah, this variation would be really bad for my opponent. I haven't looked at this or anything like that, but there's the pieces converging on c2, and let's say he like runs away with a knight or something to a1. I can just take bishop takes a1, and he can't take back on a1 because of queen to c2 checkmate. So, sorry, my computer has now frozen a little bit, so I have to wait for a moment to get it to respond. Can talk about something else for a moment. I'm starting back in school next week, so really looking forward to that. Looking forward to the new semester. Love the fact that the weather here is so nice in the winter. It's like going to be 60 degrees. I can walk around campus. I can not have to scrape away snow off my car in the morning before I head off to school. So that's all things that I'm looking forward to. So here, if I take on a1, he can't take because of queen c2 checkmate. So his knight's really in a tough position there. So he doesn't really want to take on d3, and then I just have this monster rook on d3 that's harassing him in the position. So I didn't play that. I played rook to d8, which is a bit more of a passive defense. It's starting to kind of shift the game a little bit away from this central focus on the c file and playing more of a passive game. So I played rook to d8, and he plays king e2, continuing with the idea of running away. And I play, that was my phone, not yours. I play knight to king e2, rook c. I play rook to c4, blocking this attack on d5, just kind of overprotecting that square, getting off of the bishop's color. I'm just trying to limit the potential for blunders in this position. And he plays knight to, it says knight to e5. Was struggling to read my own handwriting there for a moment. So I play bishop takes e5 so that I can clear this g7 square for my knight. I looked at maybe playing knight to g3, but it doesn't seem like I have too many squares that I can go with my knight after playing that move. So I wanted to retreat it back to g7 and then head to greener pastures on e6. So I had to first clear the bishop out of that square. That was my idea. After bishop takes, continue with my plan. And here he took my knight, which I felt was letting me off the hook kind of easy because I needed another tempo or two to activate that piece. And his bishop was already doing pretty well, I felt like, on d4. That was d4, not e5. So after king takes g7, he plays queen b2 check, asserting himself into the position a little bit more. And I play king to g6. And at this point, I probably had a minute or two left on the clock, and he still had over 10 minutes left on the clock. So he plays h4, but he's still making moves relatively quickly because he doesn't even want to give me the chance to think when it's his turn. So he played the flagging game very well, I feel like. I played d4 here. He plays h5. Kind of a trap in this position would be to take on h5. Because I think he has, if I take here, he's got rook h1 check, and then I have to play king to g4. Because if I play my king back to g6, he's got rook to h6 skewering the queen. And king g4 is not a move that looks very pretty. So instead of doing that, I play king back to f7. Plays g6, takes, I take here, but the queen has given up contention of b7, allowing his queen to enter the position, which he does. Goes to b7, and I have to be careful not to blunder my rook or anything like that. So I play king to e8. He hits this fork, but I have a move to dissolve both threats at the same time with queen to c6. And here he decides to trade queens. I don't know about that move because in this endgame, I'm up 2 pawns and they're both passed pawns. And they're protecting each other as well. Both of these pawns are protected. So they're very much winning in this endgame position. So despite not having played the absolute best moves in several of the moves, even here it's still -5 in my favor, just not on the clock. So after the queen trade, he plays rook to g1. I play rook to f6, just trying to keep everything defended while I search for a winning idea here. Rook b2, rook d5. And basically, I just need to start pushing these pawns and creating a situation where he has to respond to my threats. He plays rook to g8 check. I play king to e7, and this is where I blundered massively. So after rook to g7 check here, I played rook to f7, which allows a deadly skewer. What I had to do was just play king to e6. And after king to e6, my position is very safe, and I can just think about starting to advance the pawns down the board. And then gradually trying to activate my rooks, maneuver them to a more active square, while my king is holding down the position centrally, and using at least one rook for cover from checks. So that's the idea. But instead, I play rook f7, again, just under severe time pressure, and my opponent here plays the best move, rook to b7 check, skewering here. And then I try to defend with this, but he just takes on f7, and this is going to attract my king away from the defense of this rook. And as soon as I saw that, I resigned the position and lost the game. So it was a very devastating defeat for me, but I was really happy to have played a game with so many spectacular and accurate moves in the beginning. I mean, it was an easy attack to play with b7 to b5 launching on the queen side, but the very small optimizations of deciding when to take on d4 and playing queen to a4 followed by queen to c6 Um, I was really proud of having made those moves and keeping up as much pressure on the opponent as I could possibly have, and really extracting the full juice out of that position. And I felt like the game could have ended really quickly had I taken on H1, for example, after he played G takes F5, um, or with Rook D3 instead of playing Rook to D8, back in the position where, um, let's see if I can find it real quick. Here, creating this pin and potentially landing a passed pawn on D3. So even later on, there were these opportunities. I was just too low on time to find them, and I wasn't able to convert this game. But I'm definitely going to learn from it. And at the end of the game, my hand was literally like shaking because I was thinking so hard. My entire nervous system was like super activated. And this is part of the reason that I love chess and why I want to continue with the game, is because it's going to help me to become more intelligent, and be able to invest the total extent of my nervous system into an intellectual activity, which is going to make me more productive at work, more productive in sports where I need to have this competitive drive and adrenaline rush. Um, and to just feel that my brain was working so hard in conjunction with my emotional system, in conjunction with my senses, having my entire body aligned towards a single purpose is a really exhilarating feeling. And that's a feeling that people chase when they go through like competition or other types of extreme activities, like jumping out of a um, plane with skydiving or something like that. So this game definitely got me hooked back onto chess over the board. It's my second tournament in a long time, and I'm looking forward to getting back. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And for all of you going back to school this week or next week, good luck with all of that. And I'll see you guys, maybe not tomorrow, but sometime soon for sure.